Hi, welcome back. It's another day of design work where we sit down and sort of plow our way through designing, and we're doing classes. So, classes are quite difficult. I've said this before, and we've done a few on this channel, and we're going to keep doing quite a few on this channel for various games. I'll put up a poll. Feel free to take part in that poll if you want to, and grab some food, some drink, make sure you're comfortable, and we'll get started in a second. It's really, really weird. Okay. Right, I am ready. Hopefully you are ready. Hopefully YouTube is ready. Let's get started, right? I don't know what's going on here, but anyway, let's do this. And there. Hi, welcome to How to D&D. My name is Fred Wheeler, and today I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons. And specifically, we're talking about Shadowdark, which is a version of Dungeons and Dragons. We're going to build a class called the Bladesinger. That's right, the Bladesinger. For those of you who don't know, it is a subclass of Dungeons and Dragons 5e. The Bladesinger has been seen before 5e, and it is sort of a mixture. It's a gish. It's a fighter, spellcaster, and sort of musical dancing class. It's an odd combination. It really is. It's very, very strange. It's also been requested by my home group that there be a class like this for Shadowdark. Now, I don't know that it can be done, but I'm going to give it a go. That's the whole idea behind this today, is to try to get that to a point where I feel like, yeah, that's going to work. I'm all right with that. But I don't honestly know if it is possible to do. So what I want to do is I want to show you my notes, what I have actually collected. So what I did is I sat down and I tried to take the essence of the Bladesinger and make some notes on how I would go about transferring that into a 5e class. And it always starts with a piece of paper, usually with me sitting in front of the TV or listening to music or in a warm place, a comfortable place, and just jotting stuff down on a piece of paper. And this is essentially what I've done. Okay, this is my piece of paper here. And the thing with this piece of paper is I needed to have a spellcasting table, and I didn't want it to be too much. The problem when you're creating something like a Bladesinger, the same problem we had last week with the War Mage, is that you wind up potentially giving it too much. Because essentially when you say Bladesinger, what somebody's saying is, I want to be a wizard and I want to be a fighter as well. Or should I say, I want to be a wizard and I want to be a bard. And the problem with that is the bard is already a highly powerful class in 5e, and really doesn't need any more help. It really doesn't need any more help. Or I want to be a combination of that and wizard. And really that's just saying I just want more of everything and to be really good at it. Martial and magic. So it was difficult for me to sit down and sort of pull this into something that would work. I think I kind of got the gist of it. I'm going to show you all of that today. I normally ask the question in chat about how you would go about making a Bladesinger class for the system. And so I'm going to do that again. So, how would you build the Bladesinger class for Shadowdark RPG? Okay, how would you build the Bladesinger class for Shadowdark RPG? There's my question to you. Now I have some notes. I had forgotten that I hadn't actually done anything with my notes. They were just sitting on a piece of paper, so I had to quickly type up into a Google document just before this live stream and get it ready so that you had something to see. Otherwise, I would be typing it all up, and I didn't really want to do that. So I have actually done that. Hello, Calrel. How are you? How's it going? So put in your ideas. Let me show you what I have so far, and then we'll come back to the chat, and you guys will comment on what I've presented, hopefully, or present some of your own ideas, and we'll see where we go with this. Like this is how we do this live stream. Designing classes is not easy, but at least Shadowdark classes are easier than 5e, 4e, 3.5, and frankly, I wouldn't say they're necessarily easier than basic. I think basic. Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, I don't know, maybe on the same level, maybe not. I'm not sure. I don't think they are really. I think maybe more in line with basic. Anyway, this is draft 10. So this means this is 10 classes we've done. It is now the 9th of October. Tomorrow I'm going to be meeting with Wally DM, and we'll be taking all the classes I've been building here and all his ancestries, and hopefully starting to formalize the first draft of a document we will release on DriveThru RPG. So anyway, I need to uncheck Bladesinger. God almighty, there are so many here. Anyway, I'll say right now, I have no idea that there's any necessity in creating a knight class or a ninja class or a battle rager or an eldritch knight. I almost feel like is like just nonsense. Arcane trickster, expert, yes. Beastmaster, yes. Mounted warrior, I don't know about these things. But anyway, we'll see how we go. You never know until you try, right? Okay, so this a mage that incorporates sword play and magical dance with music. I could only, essentially I've pigeonholed swords, magic, dance, and music into them. And that is probably all I can get my head around in terms of the narrative of a Bladesinger. Because if you look at the narrative for the Bladesinger from 5e, what the heck is it really? I mean, really, what are we talking about here? It is not easy to actually define. But let me read out what 5e says, because it's not that much. I can have to take my glasses off to do this. Bladesinger's master a tradition of wizardry that incorporates swordplay and dance. Okay. Originally created by elves, this tradition has been adopted by non-elf practitioners, who cares, who honor and expand on the elven ways, blah, blah, blah. In combat, a Bladesinger uses a series of intricate, elegant maneuvers that fend off harm and allow the Bladesinger to channel magic into devastating attacks and a cunning defense. Okay. Many of who have observed a Bladesinger at work remember the display as one of the most beautiful experiences in their life. A glorious dance accompanied by a singing blade. So that is essentially what it is. I almost feel like when you look at the Bladesinger, somebody was trying to get themselves fighter and wizard, give it dance so that there was a perceived narrative, throw in a bit of elf to hopefully beef up the fluff and narrative, and say, I want to make a sword attack and also cast a spell at the same time. And there's no bloody way I would ever do that to Shadowdark. Not a chance. That's way too much. It's like giving you 2 spells to cast. 1 spell is enough. Giving you an attack and a spell? No. It's why multi-attack is really not a thing in Shadowdark. It's why dual wielding is not a thing in Shadowdark. And so, it's really difficult to take that concept and not see it as just a cash grab for getting more stuff and making myself even more powerful. The Bladesinger is notorious for being overpowered in 5e and previous versions of the game. So here we go. I thought blade, well, let's look at all the different blades in Shadowdark that we have. And I thought it does not make sense to give them a bastard sword, because a bastard sword can be used one-handed, but it can also be used two-handed. It does not feel like a fast-moving weapon. Bastard swords are actually well-balanced, but it's a bastard sword. And you're dealing with somebody who's primarily a spellcaster. So I didn't feel like it made sense to allow them to have the bastard sword. Club, well, that's not a blade. Crossbow, that's not a blade. Dagger is. Okay, let's make sure they have the dagger, so I put that down. Great axe, seems ridiculous. Not going to put that down. Great sword, two-handed weapon, and spellcasting, not a chance. That just seems ridiculous. This is a great sword is something that you would wield if you are an expert fighter. Okay. Javelin, no. Longbow, no. Longsword, yes. That makes sense to me. Mace, no. That's not. What has that got to do with blades? Short bow, no. Short sword, yes, though. Short sword, I can see those three weapons being a thing. Spear, no. It's not a blade. It's just a spear. Staff and warhammer. So I only put down 3 different weapons. Then I also looked at how they would build a Bladesinger, and the kind of concept behind the Bladesinger is a really sort of, if you can potentially be in the front line, but you really wouldn't stay there, you would sort of be in and out a little bit, and you would have some sort of armor bonus. So I've taken the concept and just said that they have access to leather armor like a thief, and they have these weapons. So they have more weapons than a wizard, and they have better armor than a wizard because they wear leather armor. They're going to get a +1. They've got a few more options in terms of weapons they can wield. But I kept their hit points the same. And the reason why I did that is the same reason why the thief has has really low hit points. Like, a thief doesn't have to have a lot of hit points to be effective in a battle. What you soon realize is because there's no attacks of opportunity in Shadowdark, you don't really need to concern yourself too much with being hit if you are fighting up close with a melee weapon, because you can move in and you can move out. And you can have a D4 as a thief, and you can have a D4 as a wizard, and it's actually perfectly fine. And you can have, leather armor and not have shields, and it's not a big deal. So I thought, okay, so they can move in and out. They're not going to be standing in the front line and blocking. That's not what their class is about. They can cast spells using their weapon. Great. They don't need a wand. They don't need a spell casting focus or a rod or a staff or something like that, or a spell book. The way that they cast spells is different. That's fine. Okay. So I added in War Song, and really the reason why I put it in War Song is I was trying to figure out what were the key elements of the Bladesinger that I needed to try to duplicate and carry over so that it would actually sort of work. And what you do is you wind up looking at it and you're thinking, okay, what effectively are we trying to achieve? What spells are we apparently focusing on that we might not already have? And the additional spells that you can get kind of depend, but I decided in the end, really I feel like this is kind of like a buffing class. If you're singing songs and dancing around, maybe you're trying to uplift somebody else. So they've got a Bladesinger at level 2. The subclass had a thing called Training in War and Song. And I was like, okay, so what are we doing here? You gain proficiency with light armor, which is why I've given them leather armor. And you gain proficiency with one type of one-handed melee weapon of your choice. I decided not to worry about one. I just gave them blades, the one-handed weapons, and I just incorporated all of them. So that was easy to sort of transfer over. You also gain proficiency in performance skill if you don't already have it. Now, performance is not really a skill. Like, it's not a thing in Shadowdark. So I've put performance down here as performance, dance, and sing. There aren't really skills. It would just be a check that's related to that, whatever the dungeon master or game master decides is appropriate. So you're going to get advantage on those checks. So that's where I transferred it over. I just made it nice and broad. It's a non-combat feature, this one. And War Song is essentially, it could be a feature that, if you're giving somebody a luck token by, using your action to make a DC 12 spellcasting check, I guess you might say that you are effectively transferring over a dice roll, an extra dice roll to somebody else within near range. That's essentially what this is trying to do. Okay, it is just that. It's kind of like bless. Essentially, you're giving them bless. It could be easily called just bless rather than war song. I guess you could say that is another way of looking at it. So whether it's bless or war song, essentially what that's trying to do there. I guess the only other aspect to consider with regard to that when I was designing this is that I was looking at the DC for Bless, because Bless essentially gives you a luck token in Shadowdark, and I was trying to decide, like, when should you get it? And because it's a tier 2 spell and for a priest, I decided that it needed to be a DC 12 spellcasting check. And it is a spellcasting check. It's essentially magic that you can do. Okay? Now, again, as I said, this could just read as Bless and not War Song. It would really matter. Bless. A lot of classes in Shadowdark just have a built-in spell that you have that you don't select. You just have it. It's part and parcel of the whole package. So this could be a combat related, but it could be non-combat related. I felt like it was not. I don't know if it's necessarily going to be better than the feature of being able to put new spells into your spell book as a wizard or not. I found that luck tokens change the power of a Shadowdark game quite significantly. So having something like the Bless spell is really, really strong, particularly if you don't fail it. If you keep succeeding on those checks, it can really sort of compound the fact that the game starts getting easier and easier and easier. But I didn't know how else to replicate that, so I put that in. Then we had Blade Song. This is level 2 feature from 5e. The Bladesinger's second level feature. You can invoke a elven magic call called the Blade Song, provided that you aren't wearing medium or heavy armor. Well, again, this is why I went with just leather armor or using a shield. So no shields. You need to have, if you're going to have your sword in one hand and a hand free, you do cast your magic through your blade. I understand that. Okay. So, but we're not going to give you a shield. It graces you with supernatural speed, agility, and focus. What does that mean? You can use a bonus action. Well, we're not using bonus actions because Shadowdark doesn't use bonus actions to start the Blade Song, which lasts for, which is why I call it the War Song, for 1 minute. It ends early if you are incapacitated. You don't medium or heavy armor or a shield. So yeah. Or if you have 2 hands to make an attack, So it starts talking about having 1 hand, 2 hands. Okay. You can also dismiss the Blade Song at any time. No action required. Okay. While your Blade Song is active, you gain the following benefits. So I looked through the benefits to decide how this was supposed to work. You gain a bonus to your AC equal to your intelligence modifier. That's quite a big deal. Okay, so you get more armor class. Your walking speed increases by 10 feet. Geez, that's quite a bit. You have advantage on dexterity acrobatics checks. It seems to be all layered on to you. Okay. Now, you could give yourself the luck token rather than give it to somebody else. Yes. You gain a bonus to any constitution saving throw you make to maintain your concentration on the spell. That bonus equals your intelligence modifier. You get a lot of stuff. And so I looked at that and I thought, okay, it's trying to give you a lot of stuff. Let's just broaden it out so that you can give it to somebody else or to yourself if you want to. And that's a luck token. Because there's no way I'm going to give them all that stuff. There's half the reason why the Bladesinger in 5e is a broken mess and shouldn't exist. And then it says you can use this a number of times. I don't care about that. All I care about is that if you fail it, you won't be able to use it again. And so if it's a spell casting check and it's essentially Bless, that's an easy way to solve all of this. And let's just do that. Let's just say, bam, that's how it looks. Bless. That'll just simplify the concept, you understand. Now, I can even write it that you have the spell Bless, and you just do it that way. I did something similar with the War Mage. We had Detect Magic, and then basically I just built it like this, and In fact, we could probably just do that and it wouldn't mean very much. Let's go here, copy. Let's just go up. And let's take this out. We don't even need to worry about that. And we go here and paste. You know the bless spell. It doesn't count towards your your number of known spells. So, nice and simple, very easy. Bless works exactly like that. And so we've kind of covered our bases pretty well. And we don't have to do very much else with it. That's probably the easiest way to write that, now that I think about it. Next, extra attack. Well, there's no way we're giving them 2 attacks in Shadowdark. That's a terrible idea. They've already got spells, and they're going to be using weapons, and they've got armor, and they can cast Bless. They don't pick it, they get it. They've got enough already, and then we want to try to give them extra attacks. So no, I didn't even look at that. I just ditched that idea. Song of Defense. You can direct your magic to absorb damage while your blade song is active. When you take the damage, blah, blah, blah. So again, the reason for having the spells in the first place in spell casting, there are spells that allow you to increase your defense if you want to. Okay? So I don't think this is necessary. There's mage armor, which nobody ever uses, but there are other spells as well. So I looked at that and I ditched that idea as well. Next, Song of Victory at 14th level of the Bladesinger, that subclass. You can add your intelligence modifier, blah, 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 to damage. And I looked at this and I thought, no, this can be duplicated by the talents table. So we will incorporate talents just like I did with the War Mage and other classes. We'll assume that you can get boosts to your stats. So if you roll 2, then you get add 2 points to your distribute towards your stats. That might be going into your intelligence. It might be going into something else. Clearly, a Bladesinger uses intelligence for spell casting. And then if you're going to do any melee or ranged attacks, then you're going to get a +1 if you roll the 3 to 6. And then, of course, a +1 to Bladesinger spellcasting checks if you roll 7 to 9. Okay, so that will boost that if you wind up hitting the top end. Like that's always useful. And then, of course, 10 to 11 gain advantage on spell casting one spell you know. So you get to pick one. I suspect that people will probably go straight for Bless because Bless is one of the stronger spells, but maybe they'll pick something else. It gives you a bit of choice. And then 12 is choose talent. So the talent table is built that way very specifically. So I looked at this subclass and I tried to break it down, and anything that I thought was just getting kind of silly, I ignored. And I'm trying really hard to balance this out so that it's not more powerful than the wizard. So to do that, that means I've got to take some spells away because I'm giving them more weapon options. I'm giving them more armor weapon options. I'm giving Bless to a wizard who has wizard spells. That's a big deal too, right? And then we have performance here. And this is, of course, more the fluffy, non-sort of combat stuff. It's the stuff you'll do outside of combat. Like this is your exploration, interaction sort of feature. And all the classes, even the spellcasting classes, usually have something like this, whether it's languages or something else. Yep. Okay, so going down, I'm not going to go over the blade magic because basically it's just spell casting. It's structured the same way as you would normally see. You can cast wizard spells you know from the blade you hold, so you need to have a blade out. 2 tier 1 spells of your choice from the wizard spell list on page 52 of the Shadowdark rulebook. Each time you gain a level, you choose new wizard spells to learn according to the Bladesinger spells known table. For casting Bladesinger spells, see spellcasting on page 44 of the Shadowdark rulebook. So we've got all that. Let's go down. So this is the table. This table, you've probably seen a table like this before. It's not the first time I've used it. Hang on, let's just push this down a bit. Okay, let's go here. And this table is essentially the same table I've been using for the War Mage, and it's the same, essentially the same table as the Priest. So you're going to get fewer spells. You get it instead of 3 spells, you get 2 spells. Although you could say, well, you're getting Blessed, so you are actually getting 3 spells, but that's also meaning we're taking something else away because you're getting that in the first place, right? And it has to be diminished because we are giving you, weapons and armor as well. Then, of course, you're going to have, instead of 16 spells like a wizard at level 10, it's going to be more like 13 spells. Okay. Is that going to be small enough number? Have I dropped it down enough? I don't know. I don't know until we see what it's like in play. Bladesinger titles, worst part to actually design, and I will get into that in a second. I have jotted down a few scrappy things on a little post-it note, and I'll put some stuff in here and we'll figure it out. But that's how I went about doing the Bladesinger. It's essentially using those mechanics, giving more weapons, more armor, hit points like a wizard, giving them a bless spell, giving them performance as a something that's a non-combat thing. They've got spells, obviously. They've got talent table. It's nice and simple to function, and it functions around melee and spell casting. And then we go into our spells table, and then of course we'll have to do the titles. So now that is what I've shown you, let's go and see what chat has to say. I'm kind of curious what people have to think, have thought about how they would go about doing this. Can I just say, Bladesinger, War Mage, they're all really hard classes to make. Super difficult. Okay, Calrel. 2E version was good. You used your sword swing dance as a somatic component. Yeah, and I think that's essentially the concept, is that you're using your sword and the way that you use your sword, and maybe you're doing a bit of a dance as well. I mean, that's a very narrative thing. I mean, I could write that into Shadowdark, but I don't know that it's necessary. I've done that in the front in just the first sentence, right? Magical dance with a blade, casting your magic through the blade. It's all there in the first sentence, right? But essentially you need to have a blade out to be able to cast your spells. That's the key concept behind it. So yeah. So nobody said anything else. Interesting. Well, I'm going to start doing some titles. Probably the hardest and worst part of the design process for Shadowdark. But I've got at least a few here to start with. Hashtag, what could be the titles for a Bladesinger? That's my question. I'm going to put in a lozenge because it's very cold here today in New Zealand. And I'm feeling it. It's going into my bones a bit. It's not winter, it's supposed to be spring, but it doesn't feel very warm. Anyway. Interesting. I am very interested by the poll. All right, let's go back to the chat in a second, but let's go to the titles and try and fill in some of these names, and then we'll go back and have a look and sort of peruse how we can solve some of these problems. Okay. Bladesinger. I almost feel like the title Bladesinger should be that it should be a title for the class itself. So I'm going to put in here Bladesinger. Here. Right? I know this sounds strange, people. It's all right. Just stick with me. So now I'm now sort of trying to decide on how to give you different titles that would be interesting. This is the hard bit. So I came up with Spellblade. I think we did this last week. Spellblade. And going along here into chaotic, let's go with that's a Spellblade. Let's make this one for chaotic. Let's put an arcane blade. I am kind of doing the same thing right across. I was thinking mystic blade for neutral. Okay. Whoops. That's not right. It's let's try again. Here we go. Mystic blade. All right, so I've got that one and that one. Cross those off. My little list here. My little sticky note. I've got a little sticky pad here. I've got the blade one done. I've got the arcane blades done, and we need to put in another one. I think what we'll do is we're going to go here. Is it arcane sword? And we'll put here spell sword. I think spell sword is probably a better reflection of than Bladesinger for a class, but I don't know. We'll see. Let's go with here mystic sword. What? That's mystic word. Sword. Mystic sword. Okay. I'm kind of cheating today if you hadn't figured it out. If you hate it, you tell me and I will move things around a little bit more. I've got arcane blade. I've got that one there. I've done this. I've done mystic sword. And then I'm started running out of ideas of how to solve my problems here. So I'm going to put here mage blade. Got that one, mage blade. And I don't know what else could be. Eldritch blade. As Eldritch blade define me that word. Weird or sinister or ghostly. Meaning of Eldritch. Unearthly, supernatural way. Yeah, I think that's fine. There we go. And then we can't keep going with. So I'm going to go here. We might just go here and move this one. Cut this. It's blade. And I'll put this one here as spell knife. You know, I have made way too many titles when I'm starting to get to a point where everything kind of looks like it's a combination of a couple of words and spell, arcane, and mystic. I'll tell ya. All right, let's do. Let's go magic. Thesaurus. I don't know. Magic, Thesaurus. Okay, sorcery, enchantment, necromancy, wizardry. Okay, sorcery. I know. Enchanted blade. We've got an enchanted blade at some point, right? We've got sword, blade, mage blade. Can we go? Enchanted blade here. Enchanted blade. Enchanted. I don't know. Something like that. What else? Black magic. Oh, let's go with voodoo blade. I couldn't think of anything else. Voodoo just seems like a fairly chaotic thing. Voodoo. Voodooism, forms, blah blah blah. Yeah, and I can't. Black magic, cursing. misunderstood. It's not actually black magic and cursing. So we're kind of, yeah, we're screwing with the lore of voodoo quite a bit, but we'll do that anyway, because that makes the life easier for me. And then I've got to come up with a title for those two at the far end of each one of these, which I don't know how that's going to go. And then I've got to come up with a we've got Mage Blade, we've got Bladesinger, we've got Spell Sword, we've got Spell Blade. We could probably go something. I don't know. What else could we do with this that would work? I don't know that there's too many things that are left. Enchanter, Oculate, Supernatural, Fascinating, Charming, Glamorous. What's another word we could use? What about Dance? Is there another word for dance? Sway, tip, disco. I do not want to call them a disco caster or a disco blade. Cut rug jig. None of these is sort of going to work, is it? I think the key thing is the blade and the magic. I know there's dance involved, but I think those are the key things to focus on. So how else can we do this? Another word for sword may be a solution. Let's do that. Thesaurus and put sword. Okay, what do we got here? We've got blade, saber. Saber is probably what word goes well with saber? Spell saber? No. Arcane saber? Mystic saber? Mystical saber? I don't know. None of those sort of seem to be working that well. Enchanted saber? I mean, we've got here Bladesinger, so there's singing going on. Maybe we can use the word singing as we're transitioning kind of more away from the idea of spells and blades and more into the blade and singing aspect. Let's do sing. I go over here and I'll do the sing here, eh? Okay, sing. Thesaurus, something like that. Sing. Buzz, till, carol, chirp. None of those seem like a good idea. Harmonize, pipe, purr, roar, sing song, solo, troll. None of those. Chant. Cool, carol, yodel. Song blade or song sword? Song blade or song sword? All right, people, throw me something. Throw me a bone. Song sword. Song blade. Song sword. I feel like almost both of them could go that way. That's bald, isn't it? Not blade. No, that is blade. It's not bald. Whew. Now I'm forgetting how to spell stuff. We could just go song blade here and song sword over here. Song sword. Oh, I just solved part of my problems. I just need one more. And these bloody titles will at least be... I'll have something there that hasn't been done before. I went through all the titles I'd created in the past from the last 9 classes and the other 10 classes, since there's a document in the description, right, called the Player's Expansion for Shadowdark RPG, with 10 classes and 17 ancestries that's on DriveThru RPG, pay what you want, I went through all those titles too to try to make sure I wouldn't duplicate anything. Oh my God. Talk about, it's like pulling teeth, I'll tell you. Okay. Doom Sword, Doom Blade. I feel like Doom Sword. If you're chaotic, Doom, something bad. Necromancer Sword? No. Doom Sword. Doom Sword sounds cool. I don't know. Doom and everything. Devastator Sword, Doom Sword. Let's just do Doom Sword. Voodoo Blade, Doom Sword. Which one's better? Doom Sword seems more impressive. Okay. Blade goes to Sword, goes to Eldritch Blade, goes to Voodoo Blade, goes to Doom Sword. Okay. And then we go here. Spell Blade, Spell Sword. That seems better. Then we've got Mage Blade, sounds better. Song Blade seems like we're getting more niche. And then Bladesinger sounds like we're very, very niche, but at the top end of our game. Okay. Mystic Blade sounds one thing. You got Spell Knife. Well, Blade could be a knife. They could be almost interchangeable, frankly. I think what I will do is I will take this one and I will switch it. Cut it. And paste it. And then take this, cut it, put that there. So Spell Knife, Mystic Blade, Mystic Sword, that sounds better than Mystic Blade or Knife. And then Enchanted Blade. I don't know. I almost feel like Mystic Sword is better than Enchanted Blade. I think we'll switch them as well. Can I just say that me moving these things around, trying to make them look like that there's some sort of meaning to it, is all smoke and mirrors and BS, okay? It really probably won't matter in the slightest. Enchanted Blade, Mystic Sword seems better than Enchanted Blade. That sounds cooler. Mystic Blade and Enchanted Blade. Oh, I think we can separate them. I find that's fine. And then Song Sword seems very niche and at the top end of everything else. Okay, for neutral. Alright, so we've got our Bladesinger titles. And we've got our spell casting table for our Bladesinger. We've got our talent table, which is nice and basic, nice and simple. Designed for a Gishi. We've got our Blade Magic. We've got our performance, our bless, we've got our hit points, we've got some armor, we've got some weapons, we've got a description, a mage that incorporates swordplay and magical dance with music. Close enough. Let's go over to the chat and see what people have to say about this. I'm kind of curious. I really am. Oh, we've got some feedback. Oh, awesome. So pleased. Here we go. Oh, Mastaro. Really? Okay. You're late to the party. Fred Hooper is a patron and a moderator. Thank you for being here. Death Dancer. Ooh, I like Death Dancer. Percussion. I don't want to separate them though. If it's going to be Death Dancer, it has to be at the very end. I think that has to go as the top of the what do you call it? It needs to be the top end of chaotic titles for this class. But I like this this word here is intriguing. It might allow me to can we? No, doesn't like that. Let's try that again. I'm just trying to copy and paste the word that you put in there into one of my windows so I can see if I get anything cool out of it. What do I get? Conductor. Oh, I see. Oh, okay. Maybe that's the define. A distinguished conductor or performer of classical music. Maestro. I still like the idea of maestro. I do. I can see that being something we could incorporate. But Doom Dancer to Death Dancer, I kind of like that more. I feel like that's very, very appropriate. I don't know, yes. Death Dancer. Death Dancer and Maestro. Well, that didn't work. I don't know what I was trying to do there, but it didn't work. Let's try that again. Does it like me doing this? Copying and pasting apparently is not something it likes me doing sometimes. Okay, Maestro. Maestro. Okay. All right, got those ideas out. And rhythmic blade, percussion blade. When I have a talk to, since I'm seeing Wally tomorrow, he can tell me whether he sees any of these as a. I feel like it has to be rhythmic blade needs to be together for it to be a title. 2 words is not going to be working. So we'll put that together. Percussion blade. I don't know about percussion blade. Percussion might wind up being too highbrow for some people to figure out. They might get confused with percussion. I'm only kidding. So yeah, okay, all right. So that's not too bad. Nobody said anything about the different features, which I find interesting. Like, nobody's commented about what they think the Bladesinger should have. I have really just stripped out all the things that I thought were just going to make it OP and try to keep the essence of it. So the class is, in its essence, is it uses blades and swords that are one-handed. It does have some armor, but it's light armor. It's the hit points, whatever the hit points are. It's basically a wizard, right? So it shouldn't have too many hit points. We don't need to worry about giving more hit points because, as I said, no attacks of opportunity in this game. Bless, because it seems to be able to buff itself, but let's allow it to buff somebody else as well, rather than just buffing itself all the time. And instead of it being able to buff absolutely everything, well, let's just give it a standard buff that already exists in Shadowdark, which is Bless. That's nice and easy. Performance, apparently it's supposed to be good at singing and dancing and performance, so let's just make that an advantage, and that's easy. It's got spell casting through its blade, rather than the wand or a rod. And then we've got our talents, which is what you've seen before. And yeah, I think that's the gist of it. I don't know that we need to. Is there anything else we need to do here? I almost feel like that's it. Blimey, I tell you, I will probably do one more class, and then I'm going to take a break from doing Shadowdark classes, just because they are class. Creating an entire class is hard. Even for a simplified version of D&D like Shadowdark, it's still a difficult process because every time you make a class, you've got to try to make it distinctive from the other classes that have existed, right? Death Dancer is a necromancer version. Oh, I see what you... Well, I guess you could say that's the case, but there isn't a necromancer. I'm not going to create a necromancer. There's no way that's going to happen. Death Dancer. I guess my key point is the major aspect of the Bladesinger narratively the fact that it's dancing around, or is the true, if you had to break it down into 2 aspects, is it's the fact that it casts spells and it uses a blade or a sword, the key factors, which is what I guess when I was constructing the titles, that is what I'm kind of focusing on. I guess those are the things that I was thinking about. But like I said, I think Death Dancer is a pretty good name. It's a blade bard. Yeah, it's a... Fred Huber has just said essentially exactly what I guess we're dealing with here. It's a blade bard. And trying to make a blade bard that is... Because the bard itself in 5e and previous versions of D&D is a broken mess. It's a Frankenstein caster with a little bit of narrative attached to it, which winds up being overly powerful. So it's really hard to make a class that doesn't wind up falling into the same bracket. So what I will do is I'll do one more class for Shadowdark, and then I'm going to move over to 5e and start doing some design work on that. I want to do some podcasts before this, so I'll do one more for this, and I'm going to try to do, and I don't know that this is going to work. Somebody I think had asked for this, or I sat down and I just jotted notes down. I can't remember whether somebody asked for it, or I just sat down and I tried to make it to see if I could make it, because I wasn't too sure if you could. But so I've got my scrappy notes. This I'll try and do next week, which is the soul knife. For me, the soul knife is it's a gish, but it's a half caster, and I would say it leans more into fighting than it does into spell casting. So you won't get that many spells, but you'll be better at fighting. So that's kind of my plan for next week with that. And then I will take a break from that and we'll go back to 5e and see if we can fix some of the 5e problems for that game and tidy things up a bit. You never know. It could happen. I may come up with a solution, or I may not. I don't know. But yes. Okay, let's end this poll. I'm so cold. Do you know what the narrative behind a Bladesinger class might be? So 6 votes, 33% said yes. Just watching, 33%. No, 17%. You know, I honestly don't think that the Bladesinger narratively has got a strong focus at all. In many respects, it hasn't already kind of been done before. Undecided, 17%. Interesting. So we've got, I think, 2 votes for yes, 2 votes for just watching, 1 vote for no, 1 vote for undecided. Okay. I think that's reasonable. It seems reasonable to me. I get it. I could sit in any one of these. Like, the more and more I look at that class, the more and more I wonder what the heck it is, frankly. So Fred Huber said, how to fix 5e, go back to AD&D. There's a reason why I don't still play Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Whether that's first or second is, I don't think it's a very good game. Fred, you know how I feel about Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. I love the monster art. I love some of the artwork from there. I love a lot of things and aspects about AD&D. But as a game, in a world where we advance things, like I think Basic is probably better than AD&D. Do you know what I mean? That's my general feeling. After trying to get my head around Advanced Dungeons and Dragons and having played Basic Back Me, and then Shadowdark and 5e and 4e and 3.5 and I think I played 3 as well. I think AD&D as a game, that is not the fix at all. Going back to that is not the fix. The fix is to take aspects that 5e does well and strip out all the stuff that doesn't work. And there's a lot of it as far as I'm concerned. But there are some aspects to AD&D that work really well. I think AD&D understood high-end play far better in terms of the character progression than 5e does. 5e does a very bad job of that. And so that'll be one of the things. But also, look, you know, multi-classing is something I'm going to talk about in the future. In a couple of weeks, I'm going to talk about multi-classing. And I can imagine I'm going to get a lot of hate for it. But I feel like, you know, multi-classing existed in AD&D and then earlier, newer versions of D&D, and it's old technology. It really is. It's old technology. I think it should go. It needs to be replaced with a better concept and there isn't a better concept that's been presented so far. People are still using old technology. So that's just one of the aspects. But 5e's biggest problem is a overly complicated core rule system. I can't fix that, but I can solve species or race problems. I can deal with the backgrounds, which they have screwed up significantly, and I can hopefully, I think I got some solutions for the classes as well. So we will look at that in the future. But till then, I'm going to get out of here before I scare people away. Yeah, hard work. Design is actually difficult, and design is also based on personal preference. When I do these sorts of things, it should be obvious to you by now. I am trying to get you to go and make your own stuff. It didn't take me very much. Like, it's a Google document with a couple of tables on it and a few words that have been typed in. There's hardly any formatting going on there. You know what I mean? Like, you can do this stuff yourself and you'd be fine. The Bladesinger will go on to my Patreon on the paid tier for those of you who are waiting for it. If you're not, don't worry about it. It's all good. Anyway, I'm going to get out of here. So thank you for watching and listening. Thank you for taking part in the poll if you took part in the poll. Huge thank you for the people in chat. Calrell and Fred Hoover, thank you so much for your feedback and your ideas. I certainly have jotted down a whole bunch of them. And yes, it's these are getting shorter and shorter, I've noticed, in these live streams. They used to be so long, and now they get shorter and shorter. I want to thank all of my patrons, paid tier patrons, because without you, I could not keep doing this. I would probably just stop. And those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. Thank you. Yes, you have to look at the past so you don't repeat the past. And you also need to make sure that what you're doing in the future or what you're doing right now is actually an improvement and not something that isn't working. Anyway, wherever you are in the world, whether it be the morning, the afternoon, or the night, please look after yourself, your family, and your friends. Be nice to your neighbours. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s. Yes, absolutely. And we will be repeating some of it, but not all of it.